informational in nature, requires no action from us, but I want to share that with you publicly.
Where would you like to put that on the agenda?
I'd like to do it as item C at the opening of the workshop, if that would be agreeable.
That's fine.
So I've made that in the form of a motion, if there's a second to my motion.
Okay, second.
And I'd ask you too, Ms. Emel, if we could just, unless there's other additions or changes, if that could be the motion to approve the draft agenda with that change. Do you still second the motion?
Yes, I second the
All right,
motion.
all in favor of accepting the draft agenda with that change, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0, so that takes us to item C. So at this point, I want to just share publicly with the board 3 items for your information. The first item comes from Carson Tucker, and it is simply that they have received, or rather that if you will recall, I believe in our August joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, we discussed, and that was immediately prior to our tour of the middle school, the new middle school, there was also some discussion that we would tour the building again later in the year, and they have expressed an interest in doing that now that we are closer to sort of a final product. And they would like to do that along with Chief Singer and Sheriff Nunnally from a public safety perspective, so those 2 individuals could get a chance to see the inside of the building. Mr. Voorhees would work with Dr. Jones unless there's any concern from the board about doing that. And we have already, again, we've already discussed this once publicly at our, I believe, our August perhaps meeting, but it was in the fall. So if there are no concerns, Dr. Jones will get a call from Mr. Voorhees and we'll
Would
move
that be a
forward.
joint tour?
Yes, ma'am. it
Again?
would.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I
That's
think
great.
exactly what we did
Yeah,
before.
that's great.
And they just asked if we could broaden that to also include Sheriff Nunnally and Chief
Great.
Singer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I do. I agree with you, Ms. Ayers. I think it's a good thing. Any concerns with doing that?
Nope.
All right, hear none. All right, so the next item is further information from the Board of Supervisors. And this was a call that I received from Billy Melton, the former chairman of the Board of Supervisors. Mr. Melton has received a letter. It was from the Office of the Vice President of the United States, and it was sent to him in his former capacity as chairman, and it recognizes Hakeem Abdul-Sabor as a member, as a citizen of Powhatan County, but also as a member of the United States Olympic team. And what it's asking the Board of Supervisors to do is to publicly recognize him for his membership on that team. And Ms. Ayers brought that to us, I believe, 2 meetings ago. We discussed that. We indicated at that time that this board also wanted to publicly recognize him in some fashion. What Mr. Melton suggested was that perhaps we could do that jointly, since they have also received that letter, and he even suggested perhaps that we could do a joint resolution. He was going to take that suggestion back to his board, and I'm taking it to you. I think that it's a nice idea that we do that at one time, perhaps at the May meeting when we meet jointly with the Board of Supervisors. Again, I don't think this is an action item, but as long as that's agreeable with everyone, our staff could work that out jointly. Okay. All right, so Mr. Voorhees, I believe, will be contacting you to work out some details about that. And the resolution itself, I think that we would present would be something that Dr. Jones would bring us back to take a look at one of our future meetings as a group. Okay? And the final item I have is the minutes of the joint meeting. Mr. Tucker has mentioned that it would probably be a wise idea of wise use of resources if we produced a single set of minutes for that meeting. Right now, we're producing a set of minutes and they're producing a set of minutes. We're voting on ours and they're voting on theirs. What he suggested is simply have one set of minutes produced by one of the 2 clerks, and I think Dr. Jones and Mr. Voorhees could work that out about which set of minutes that is. We would vote on the same set of minutes individually or separately as boards, but I think the concept is just I suppose, an economy of force, one individual rather than 2, and having the same minutes produced from both meetings. So again, that seems to be very straightforward, but I wanted to share that with you, and if anyone has any concerns with that, certainly give you a chance to discuss those.
Good with that.
Okay, and unless there's concern, I think Mr. Voorhees and Dr. Jones, we're going to try to work that out for a meeting. The first joint meeting will be in May. They did ask to cancel the joint meeting in March, and that was because of their schedule. I think they have several other meetings around that time period, and they asked if we could simply do that. So that's all that I have to report from the Board of Supervisors for item C, unless there's any questions about that. Ms. Ema.
So when will we have our joint meeting then? Because it doesn't have to do with the budget? It won't maybe too late?
I'll let Dr. Jones answer that.
Sure. We're going to and we've done this previously. We're going to present our budget to the Board of Supervisors on March 19th at their previously scheduled meeting. Of course, board members are welcome to attend, but they've asked us to just present it. I think Mr. Walters is going to do an introduction from the school board, and then Mr. Johns and I will do a presentation of our budget to them and answer any questions that they have at that time.
Any other questions or any concerns about any of those three items? All right. So that takes us to the first public comment period, or the only public comment period of the workshop. So this period provides an opportunity for individuals or delegations wishing to comment publicly to the board to do so. There is a time limit for this public comment period of 3 minutes per individual and 5 minutes per group, with a total time period of 30 minutes. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak, please identify yourself by name to the board. We certainly would welcome your comment. Anyone wishing to address the board publicly, please come forward. All right, well, seeing no movement, I'll bring the public comment period for the workshop to a close. It takes us to the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item is our monthly construction and facility update for January of this month. I asked Mr. Tibbs to come up and share some progress in what we're doing in the area facilities in our buildings.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello?
Oh, Mr. Tibbs.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Miss Ayers. That's Dr. Tibbs will come up and share the information. I haven't gotten used to that yet. My apologies, Dr.
Thank you.
Tibbs.
Congratulations.
I'm not giving you your correct honorific, so please accept my apology.
Appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Bill.
At our existing facilities, Pocahontas Elementary School, Barbara Adcock and Elizabeth Kirk received a PEF weather station grant for all 3 elementary schools, and so we worked with those individuals to get those up at Pocahontas Elementary. Powhatan Elementary, we also had some repair to the existing lighting, perimeter lighting. If you recall, last month I updated you in regard to the perimeter lighting on that new parking lot. As many of us have experienced, when you put new with old, sometimes something happens, and so we had some wiring issues that resulted in that, so we repaired that at Powhatan Elementary. Flat Rock Elementary just installed the weather station and continue working on work orders as they are received. Pocahontas Middle School, we've experienced with this fluctuation in weather and change from freezing to not freezing to just crazy weather. We've had some roof leaks that have developed in certain areas, and so we've identified those with our contractor, and the repair order has been placed. I spoke with him today, and he is going to come out as soon as he can when the weather gets a little bit better so that he can repair those areas at that middle school and get it where it needs to be to finish out the year. Powhatan High School, we replaced a faulty secondary breaker. We had a secondary breaker that was faulty and has been faulty for a while, causing power outages in the second floor of that building, and so we replaced that. That required a shutdown of the entire school, and so we took care of that over the weekend, a couple weekends ago. The middle school project is continuing to progress very well. Area A, which is the gym space. Our gym space is looking very good. All the equipment is up, basketball nets, hoops, backboards, etc. Where we are at this point is getting the floor ready to do some flooring down in the gym, as well as the bleachers. Locker rooms are intact as well, getting ready to put the fixtures in there, toilets and urinals, etc. Area B, the rooftop equipment was started up, and this is a major milestone for that particular section of the building. It allows those individuals that are working in that section of the building to have heat, not from a small space heater, if you will, but from the actual unit. They continue to do painting in that section and put ceiling grids in. The kitchen tile in the kitchen area, cafeteria area was 80% complete, and a lot of progress made there. Area C, the rooftop unit connection was completed. Continue to work on the spray foam, fireproof foam, brick veneer completed, metal panels. If you drive by, you'll see that Area C, all the windows across the front are up, and they're looking very nice. Area D, again, brick veneer on the outside, weather permitting. Windows and storefront glass continues, and metal panels continue. Interior work, both first and second floor, continuing to work on plumbing, overhead plumbing, rough-in electrical, overhead electrical rough-ins, mechanical electrical rough-ins, just really tightening down on that area and buttoning down, getting all the drywall up, ceiling grids, etc. Area E is the area of focus at this point. Area E is the old vocational wing. It is totally under roof, completely under roof. The boiler room is completely intact. They are busy working on getting the glass in to completely close that section of the building, and so they can continue to do the overhead work and the fireproofing, etc. in that section. Area F, which is the concessions building, they continue to work on that. The roof, steel, and decking was completed. The roofing, the EPDM roofing was started, and the brick veneer was started, and that's really taking shape as well. For the main mechanical room, as I said, everything is intact, everything is connected. We actually last month had rooftop units craned onto the building, and those are intact as well, and they've been started up. For the site work, they are continuing to work on the site, working on the bus loop, going around the back, putting in curb and gutter, doing a lot of sidewalk work, weather permitting, and trying to get all of that where it needs to be. In the courtyard, the seat walls and the sidewalks have been started, and you'll see that in the presentation in just a second. Transportation Maintenance Facility, Phase 2 continues there. Exciting time last week with the demolition of the old building. If you drove by and saw that, that started last week, and they really looks different there now. A temporary diesel tank is on site, and they are beginning the fuel canopy work with removing the pumps this week, and then going to begin the canopy work hopefully by the end of this week. So this is a picture of, went too far. This is a picture of the first day. The one on the left is when the loader started with the back part of the building, and then the one on the right was after he started to go over in there. This process took a couple of days. The foreman shared with me that he was separating materials as he was tearing down, because if he put all the materials in the trailer to go to the dump or wherever that they carry it to, he was going to be charged extra, so he was separating as he was doing it, so that's why it took us a few days to do that. The left side is as they came all the way through and saw the bay doors, and then the right side was the last little bit of what was the old office left of the building. It is now down to bare ground. Middle school, this is the A section. These are those veneer walls, those brick veneer walls, the seat walls.
I think we need to have a moment of silence or something, Dr.
No, we need a moment of celebration.
That's right, big celebration.
I was sharing with Larry Johns that morning because I came back and told him that they were up there, and he said, how did it go? And I said, it just crumbled. I mean, it literally, he just set it on top and it just completely fell. So it was ready. These are the seat walls in the courtyard at the new middle school. You'll see that these are the outdoor seating spaces. These look very cool. The left side is when you're down on the bottom floor coming in, and the right side is up on the top floor looking down. This is the B section. This is the commons and the stage area. You can see the stage has been painted completely black. It looks very nice. The commons, all the drywall is in and all of the lighting is in. It's a very bright space, a very open space. You'll look at the back of the picture. That is a storefront glass that will go back to the serving lines of the cafeteria, and all of that looks very nice. This is a C section. A lot of painting is going on there with the painting contractor. The picture on the right, you'll see that is the blue that will be throughout the building and in the classrooms and some of the office spaces. There's a variation of a blue and a gray and an orange type color. Section D, again, ceiling work continues with the overhead lines for mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Storefront glass on the left. The glass is not in just yet. That is the framing for the storefront glass. This is the E section. This is the focus at this point for the contractor. Really working on masonry work, really working on structural steel and make sure we get all that in there. And fireproofing will be going in there this week. Thank you very much.
All right, questions for Dr. Tibbs? Very nice.
All right,
Two that we always ask you, we're still on schedule?
still on schedule.
Okay, and budget's okay?
Budget is great.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Tibbs.
Dr. Jones.
Yes, next item is an item we've talked about for several months. This is a health insurance update for next year. Larry Johns is coming forward. We have gotten some information in the last week or so about rates for next year, and wanted to share some information and our recommendations on some of the options that we've been discussing for the last several months. Mr. Johns?
Yes, and thank you. Very pleased to present this information tonight, since it does contain some good news. But just to review where we've been these last few months, we started off in November expecting a 20.5% increase based upon our third quarter claims. Then when the fourth quarter claims came in, that was driving a 21.4% increase. The cost for that to the employer would have been $764,000. Employees would have shared an equal increase. And since we currently have 454 employees that are participating in our health insurance, the average cost per employee would have been just under $1,700. And as you all remember, that caused us to start talking about some cost control options that we have presented multiple times. So the really good news tonight is that our actual increase is just going to be 10%. And that reduces that projected additional expense of $764,000 that we were looking at down to just $357,000. That is saving us over $400,000, and that step alone enabled us to balance the budget, because we were $354,000 out of balance in the first draft. Equal savings going towards to the employees for this. And so, first question is, how did this happen, and who do we thank for it? We've been a member of Anthem Local Choice since it was started in 1989. And, because that is a local plan, a state-sponsored plan, they have the ability to smooth out the peaks and valleys of our increases and decreases. And typically what we see them do each year is maybe do about a 2% adjustment for us. What that means is that if we're projecting rates to go up 10%, then they can smooth that out and make it 8, or if they were going down 10, make the decrease 8. Doing 10% is unprecedented. We've just never seen anything, like that before. When I look back over the history, I saw a 3%, 3.5% once, but never 10. The individual that actually has the ability to make this decision and does so is the program manager for the local choice, Mr. Walt Norman. And basically what happens each year is our consultant, David Rowe, will talk with him, we'll review our claims and have discussions and so forth. And that is what occurred this year as well. And I had the analogy on here that David hit a home run for us, but since the Olympics are going on, I should say he brought home the gold for us, because that is, really, really good news. And so as I stated, some of the things they talked about in order to bring this rate down was the length of time that we've been in this plan, the loyalty that Powhatan has shown with the local choice plan. We're one of the larger school divisions that are in local choice, but also David had explained to them that we were pursuing certain cost control options, and the cost control option of moving from Key Advantage Expanded to Key Advantage 250 also fits in with TLC's long-term goals, and that when the Affordable Care Act was implemented several years ago, the expanded plan is potentially subject to the Cadillac tax that goes with that. And So they've had discussions for the last 3 years about doing away with it, but the rates for that have not been implemented yet. And so we don't know for sure whether it be subject to it, but it's very, very close. And so that is one of the things that drove them to do that reduction for us. But 10% increase is still going to cost us more money. It's $357,000, as I mentioned earlier. So we still do need to follow through and consider certain cost control options. We had, over the past few months, discussed 3 options: a wellness plan, a high deductible plan with contribution to a health savings account, and changing from the expanded to the 250. The change from the expanded to the 250 provides us the largest savings. It's $158,000 savings, and of course the employee would save as well. That $158,000 is 44% of the $357,000 increase that we're looking at. And the premiums, if we make this switch, the premiums for the employees, what they're paying today in Key Advantage Expanded versus what they would pay in the Key Advantage 250, for employee only are actually going to go down. We still have to calculate the formula using the blended rate. And so right now, an employee only in Key Advantage Expanded pays $176 a month. Under Key Advantage 250, they'll pay $164 a month. So they'll be saving $12 a month on their premium. If we don't move from expanded and keep the expanded program in, their premium will go from $176 to $195, so that's a $19 increase. Same for employee plus one, their premium is only going to go up $2. Family's only going to go up $3, and using the formulas that we have. So if we stay, for example, with expanded, the family premium will increase $116 a month for the employee. So, you know, now is an excellent time to make this change, because those employees that switch, basically, I mean, they're employee only will save a little bit. The others only get paid $2 and $3 more a month. So, I mean, that's a very, very good advantage, huge difference. And of course, we have most of our, or 221 of our employees are in the Key Advantage Expanded, and 209 are in the 500. And so more of our employees are in the expanded program. And so we can make this change basically with no cost for them.
Mr. Johns, can you repeat for me anyway the family rates of the 250 versus the expanded?
Yes. Currently, the family employee is paying $1,067 a month under the Key Advantage Expanded. If we go to Key Advantage 250, they'll pay $1,070 a month, so that's $3 more a month. If we stay in Expanded, they'll go from $1,067 to $1,183, a $116 increase.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. One other option that we had talked is we have a high deductible plan already. We've got 24 employees who are in the high deductible plan. We have a health savings account set up already, and we do have 13 employees that are participating in the health savings account, but the employer is not making any contribution to that right now. When we had, in our last presentation, I had calculated a $70 a month contribution from the employer to go into the health savings account for those employees that switched to that. And in our survey that we did discovered that we really need to make that $100, and I'll show you some of the information from that survey on the next slide. Also, in the survey we did with our employees, 22 employees indicated that they would in fact switch from one of our other plans, either expanded or 500, into the high deductible plan if we offered an employer incentive. If 11 of those do switch, that'll pay the contribution cost for the 24 employees that are already in the plan. So if any more of those employees switch, it's a savings. We also had 64 employees that responded that they would consider changing, and so it's possible that, you know, more will.
Mr. Johns, if I might.
Mr.
Chairman,
Cole.
What would be the premium for an employee only for the high deductible plan?
It's $10 a month right now, and I haven't completed the rate sheets for next year, but if that changes at all, it would just change by $2. It would not be, I mean, the total premium has increased, but as far as the employee share, it's not going to be much.
So in the employee only, in the 250 plan, what's that estimated to be next year? Do you have an idea?
The employee only next year is $164 in the 250 plan.
So an employee could save basically $150 a month, plus we'd give them $100 a month for their
Yes,
health
sir.
savings, so they could net $250 per month in their health savings account just by making that switch.
Yes, that's correct.
Can I come back and get on this insurance?
This next slide shows you what some of our neighbors are contributing towards a to a health savings account. And you see 100, 105, 100, 100. And so, you know, that's why we realized our $70 was too low. And so we are recommending $100 at this time. Prince George, you see 3 different rates there, and those are for employee only, employee plus one, and family. But I want to caution you that Prince George only offers a high deductible plan to their employees. They have a few that are grandfathered in another plan, but that's all they offer. And so, you know, that's why their rates are higher. So anyway, that's what caused us to go to increase the $100 to $100. I think that's the right thing to do. The last option that we had, cost control option that we had talked about, was a wellness plan. And a wellness plan is a lot more difficult to calculate savings or to predict any savings. And that's because if that plan is successful, what's going to happen is employees, you know, change their, to a healthy lifestyle, and that then drive down your future premiums. And, you know, then you would have savings. In our employee survey, 78% of the respondents indicated that they would participate in the wellness plan, which, you know, leads me to believe that they already live in the healthy lifestyle as far as, you know, tobacco use and so forth is concerned. And therefore, using that percent of our employees that are on health insurance, that's a $72,000 annual upfront cost for us. And if the remaining 22% switched over, it's another $20,000. So our future rates would have to decrease, you know, close to 3% for us to break even, you know, on that cost. That is also a difficult program to manage in that you're going to have double the number of premium payments for employees. You're going to have some changing back and forth that's going to cause a little bit more work in payroll in order to manage that. So with all of that said and done, where we are with our recommendations right now is that we do implement the cost control option of moving from Key Advantage Expanded to the Key Advantage 250. That was one of the major considerations for Mr. Norman. I've already gone over the savings that the employee would, have for that switch. And also, in an effort, because there's been discussions about equalization of this benefit with county, I have met with the county on the rate sheets and so forth, and the county has also indicated that they are willing to make this change also. And of course, that change does, as I reported before, take the action of both boards, takes the vote of both boards. The second recommendation is that we do provide the employer incentive of $100 a month to implement the, to encourage and provide an incentive for employees to move to the high deductible plan. The county has also said they would do this and they would do it at $100. So we'd be consistent on those two benefits. Not recommending that we consider the wellness program at this time. County has also indicated that they're not interested in the wellness program either. So any questions and so forth that I could address?
Questions from the board for for Mr. Johns?
I have
Yes,
a
ma'am, Ms. Ayers.
question. In the health savings account, do they allow like routine things? Do they pay for those, or does that also come out of the employees, like routine health screenings?
Well, your annual physical and so forth is covered under the policy. But as
Without
far as-
paying, without going to the deductible?
Right.
Okay.
That's the case for all three. But
Okay.
you do have under a high deductible plan, your deductibles are, much higher. And, but as far as the money that you've set aside, you can use that for any legitimate medical expense. And, the difference between the health savings account plan versus the 125 plan that we have right now, those dollars can accumulate and you can use them anytime in the future. Whereas on the 125 plan that we have right now, those dollars have to be used, within a given amount of time. And the amount that you can put in there is much higher in the health savings account.
And what is the catastrophic limit on that, out-of-pocket,
I did that presentation before. I don't remember, it was like $2,800 for employee only, I think, on the high deductible.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
And
go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry if I could
Councilman.
add one more information. And I think I've shared this before, but there was a question from the board of whether we could front-load this employer contribution, and we did determine that we could do that. And so that would help, so that people would start off with, if we went with $100-1,200 in their health savings account to start the year, which I think would be a help and a comfort to people in terms of moving to that plan.
All right, and Mr. Johns, the money in that account would also be available for legitimate associated medical costs, things like prescriptions and other things?
Yes, it would.
Right,
It
so
is.
anything that's approved federally, it will
Correct.
go through.
That's correct.
Okay, so that gives them a lot of flexibility for how that money's used.
Mhm.
Okay. I'd like to ask you a question about your first recommendation. So you talked about the county, that they had a willingness to make the change, but also that you had engaged them in some discussions about equalizing the employer contributions between the county and between the school system.
Mhm.
So how close will we be preliminarily, where your discussions are in equalizing those two things? Do you have any idea?
Yes, I do. Right now, when I met with the county last week, they had not yet drafted up their rate sheet, so I'm not sure where they're going. But what I did is I drafted up our rate sheets and I compared it to what the county's paying today. We're $405,000 off, from what they're doing. What the county staff and I agreed to is that they would draft their rate sheets. We would meet again and see where we are once they've drafted those rate sheets to see, how close we can come. We are much closer on the 250 plan using those premiums than we are on the 500 plan. And so given the $400,000 for us to ever get to that same level would take multiple years, and it's also going to depend upon what the county does with it.
All right, and speaking only for myself, I recognize that this is probably too much to do in a single year, but I appreciate your efforts in looking at ways to try to equalize those two employer contributions. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you for that. Any other questions, Mr. Johnson?
Chairman,
Mr. Cole?
yes, a couple of questions. That $400,000 difference, does that include the $1,000 payment to people that don't participate or not?
No, sir. It only looks at the premium payments. It does not, include that difference at all.
So that would be about another, what do we have, 200 people? that don't participate?
That'd be another, about $175,000.
Yeah, so, yeah, it would be hard to consider one without considering the other, in my opinion. Even if we do it gradually, then I think we gradually address both those issues. That'd be my opinion anyway. Can we get, or is there such a thing as a comparison between our current or expanded plan and the 250? Do they have a kind of a comparison of those two in terms of the benefits that people could look at, so they kind of know what they're looking in, what's going to happen to them in the future?
Yes, and I did provide that earlier in the year and can certainly do that again.
I think for most employees, it's more real now than it was a few months back. So, if we've got it posted somewhere just highlighting where it is, it would be good for them. I'd appreciate that.
Good.
All right, other questions for Mr. Jones?
Real quick,
Mr. Conger.
how many participants do we have currently in the plan, roughly?
454 is the total count right now. I think 221 are in the expanded, 209 in the 500, and 24 in the high deductible.
And 454 is the total?
Yes, sir.
Because if you divide that into the 405, that's almost $900 per participant. So there's about a $900 difference in compensation per participant between us and the county.
It was a huge adjustment for us, gold medal adjustment.
And I've said this before publicly, but we'll state, a lot of that difference comes from the change the county made several years ago, where they started only putting the minimum into the expanded plan that they had to do, and really started subsidizing the 500 plan more in an effort to get more of their employees to take advantage of that plan. So it really has been the last 4 or 5 years that difference has expanded as a result of kind of a philosophical change that the county made, or decision that they made.
All right, other questions or comments?
One other, if I
Mr. Cole?
can.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johns, we would not get this 10% increase if we decided to keep, you didn't say this outright, but you're implying that unless we move to the 250 and away from our current expanded plan, we probably wouldn't get this 10% rate. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not. They've issued the renewal numbers, so they are what they are. So we will, it'll be 10% regardless of whether we move to the 250 or stay in expanded. What they do the following year, because we didn't, I don't know, but it will not change this year.
Okay.
The board does have the option of making a choice.
Okay. I appreciate you clarifying that, and I certainly understand that if we, that the rate
Yeah.
negotiation was based on probably moving to that, and if we did not move to that, there would probably be some rate adjustment in the coming years.
It'd
cover
have
that.
to be the future.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Good,
Yes, sir.
Good question, Mr. Cole. Any other questions or comments? Dr. Jones, any other comments?
I do not. This is the recommendation, and the recommended budget that you'll receive at the 7 o'clock meeting is built upon us moving forward with these recommendations. So that will be something for the board to consider as we move forward. If we don't move forward with those, we'll have to make other decisions in terms of balancing the budget with what our projected revenues are at this point.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Appreciate your enthusiasm. All right, so the next item we have is closed session. Ms. Emil, if I could ask you, would you mind reading the certification, making the motion to take us into closed session?
Sure. I recommend that we enter into closed session pursuant to Code 2.2-3711A1 to discuss the employment, resignation, and leave of specific employees, and pursuant to Code 2.2-3711A2 and A4 to discuss expulsion and school placement of specific students. Codes 2.2-3711A1, A2, and A4.
All right.
I second the motion.
All in favor of Ms. Emil's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We are in closed session.